All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Andy Bragg, and I am a technical sales representative for SKC. Welcome to the SKC Web IH Learning Series. SKC is trying to do our part in working together when and wherever possible to get through this current pandemic with you. If you have joined our previous webinars, thank you very much. Glad to have you again. If this is your first time, we're very glad to have you join us. Either way, I really hope that this will be informative and helpful to you in some way. So thanks again. If you are in the medical field or in any way fall under the first responder category, I want to say an extra thank you to you. We greatly appreciate everything that you have done and continue to do to help us through this difficult time. Please stay safe and healthy. We need you. A quick format note. Please feel free to send any questions through the chat feature to the right on the GoToWebinar dashboard. I will do my best to stop at 20 minutes, and then Chuck Notgreiner, our VP of Sales, will help answer some questions. We will attempt to answer all of these questions if we have time. If we do not have time, we will be sure to get these answered and to you with a follow-up message. One more quick note, if something should happen during the presentation and we're unable to continue, or if you get kicked off or something happens to our system, we will get you a copy of the presentation in some format that will help you be useful, and we hope it will be useful to you. Today's webinar is about our new AirCheck Essential Basic Air Sampling Pump. Now, if my presentation will cooperate. There we go. I know that the word essential has been heavily used recently to describe many things centered around this pandemic. Ironically, this name was decided on about 1.5 years ago, and some of you may have seen our pre-launch of the pump at last year's AIHCE. Here's a quick outline of the introduction. I'm going to start out by introducing you to some of the key features and specifications that kind of make the AirCheck Essential different from our other basic pumps. Then I will jump into the physical features, the unique touch display keypad, the basic operation and calibration, which will go hand in hand in the process of setting up the flow with this pump. Then I will briefly explain how the pump is offered with regards to kit configurations. Lastly, I will kind of circle back a bit and quickly cover the Checkmate calibrator specs and operation before turning it over to Chuck Notgreiner to answer some questions. About 6 years ago, SKC introduced the AirCheck Touch. I hope that you've seen it. Some of you may own some. The AirCheck Touch has been an amazing pump for SKC and certainly remains a premier pump for us today. This was our first pump made with the polycarbonate with rubberized anti-static overmolding. It's a mouthful. It was also our first with a touch display and the beginning of our goal to make all of our new pumps and products so easy that you, quote unquote, don't have to read the manual. Now, I want to be clear, we strongly encourage you to read the manual of all the products, but it really is so easy that at least you don't have to read it all the time each time you reintroduce to the pump. We have a lot of customers that have used our basic pumps like the AirCheck 52, the Airlight series, and even the XR5000. They like the basic operation principle, and they just may not need data logging or some of the extra features included in the AirCheck Touch. But they really like the new packaging, the durability, the higher flow range, and of course the longer run times that it offers. We have been asked many times, when are you going to come out with a basic version of the AirCheck Touch? Well, the answer is right now. The AirCheck Essential is the next in our series of touch pumps that enable the operation and calibration without the need for screwdrivers or special tools. You will notice a striking resemblance to the AirCheck Touch physically if you have seen it before. And as I go through this presentation, you will see that the performance specs and flow range are similar as well. The Essentials flow range is 5 cc's to 5 liters per minute. This is a change from some of our past basic pumps like the AirCheck 52, which only went up to 3 liters per minute. It will do low flow sampling down to 5 cc's and up to 500 cc's using a low flow holder accessory, something like our all-in-one adjustable tube holder, or just a CPC with a standard tube holder. You can also use the AirCheck Essential for multi-tube sampling. It will handle back pressure up to 50 inches of water column at 2 liters per minute and has a runtime of over 40 hours at 2 liters per minute. And even if you have an application where you need to sample at 5 liters per minute, you will still see run times in excess of 15 hours. The pump corrects the flow to compensate for changes in temperature and atmospheric pressure, even though it is a quote-unquote basic pump. In addition to that, the bright LEDs of the AirCheck Touch and Pocket Pump Touch have been a big hit with our customers, so we have included them on the Essential as well. It has a very large displayed elapsed time clock. The clock will freeze upon a flow fault, but if the pump auto restarts and clears the blockage and is able to reestablish the flow rate, the clock will resume and help achieve a valid sample. The case is extremely tough and is anti-static, as I said earlier, and the overmolding also makes it kind of a no-slip grip that is very comfortable to the hand. You don't have to worry about dropping it or it slipping. And the coating also makes it extremely quiet. The pump is very light at 19.4 ounces and is very low profile when worn on the hip. It is also intrinsically safe. Once again, and it won't be the last time I say it, no special tools needed for the operation and calibration. All right, a quick run through on some of the physical features of the Essential. First is the protective screen cover. That kind of serves two purposes, really. It is like a screen protector on your phone, as it prevents unnecessary wear and tear on the display. Once the pump is running, you can close the screen and still see the pertinent information through the cover. It also serves as the first layer of security to help prevent people from accidentally or, unfortunately, intentionally tampering with the pump. The pump inlet fitting is recessed to help prevent breakage when the pump is dropped and are hit against something during normal activities for the wearer. It also helps prevent kinking of the tubing when the wearer bends over or turns. The clear inlet housing makes it easy to see if the filter has become discolored and needs to be cleaned or replaced. The lower portion of the pump is the battery portion, which can be easily replaced in the field if necessary. Here I just wanted to point out that I've already talked about the cover, but here is the closed position. It is obviously, when closed, very low profile and kind of snaps into place. This is where it really serves as a good screen protector, but allows you to see through it and get the pertinent information off the pump. The on-off button serves a couple of purposes, as you will see later in the operation training. When the pump is off, it turns on the pump and the display. If the pump is not in the run mode, the button will also turn the pump back off. However, if the pump is in the run mode, pressing the on-off button will lock the display for a second level of security against tampering. This is another great improvement on this family of pumps. The belt clip is a very durable metal belt clip. It is field replaceable, and I know that you can't really see it from this angle, so I wanted to insert another picture real quick to see if I can give you a little bit better view. There we go. As you can see, it is rounded at the bottom to make it easier to slide on and off a belt or waistline of clothing. Not really sure where that lavender color came from, but I hope you can see it. I hope you get that image. Last is the charging contacts located and shielded at the bottom of the pump. This is another great advancement on this pump. It makes it very easy to charge. Instead of having to plug in a cord to each pump, you simply sit it or dock it into the cradle. You will see the picture that the pump is docked in the cradle. The power cord is connected by a standard barrel connector fitting. Just to the left of where the power cord is connected to the cradle you will see a little connection port that I've just highlighted. This port gives you the ability to connect additional cradles for up to a total of 5 pumps to be charged at one time with a multi-cradle power supply. Now, if you order this in a kit, like a 3-pack or a 5-pack kit, you'll automatically receive the multi-cradle power supply. Just FYI, for those of you that may have already owned some AirCheck Touch pumps, this is the same cradle and same power supplies. These batteries receive a full charge in about 3 hours. We always recommend that the pumps be charged completely before removing them from charging for use. The charging cradle has status LEDs to indicate the status of the charge. So a steady red light just means that the charge is in process. A red indicator for 3 seconds, followed by a green indicator for 1 second, means that your battery is about 75% charged. When you get a steady green light, your battery is fully charged and the charger will go into trickle mode to keep the battery from overheating, but also it will keep the battery at full charge so it's ready when you need it. Here's kind of a bird's eye view of the pump with the protected cover in the open position. That may be kind of hard to view at first, but if you imagine the cover flipped upwards and vertical, that's kind of the position it's in right now, just so that you can see the display very clearly. This is a whole new user interface that incorporates a black and white backlit display with a 3-segment capacitive touch keypad. You simply have the up and down arrows and the pump button for complete operation. As you will see shortly, not only do we have an elapsed time clock, but it is a very large and easy to read elapsed time clock. As mentioned earlier also, there are red and green flashing LEDs to give pump flow status for the wearer or for a coworker or supervisor from a distance. Lastly, as I mentioned, there is a 2-tier level of security to prevent tampering. I will show more on that shortly. Jumping into the basic operation, for those of you that have used, for example, our AirCheck 52 or other pumps that require a screwdriver to adjust the flow rate, think of the up and down arrows as your virtual screwdriver. And if your pump also had a button to push to start and stop, then think of the pump button on this pump as the button that starts and stops. It has other purposes as well, but that is the foundation that will kind of get us started, and I can go into the other functionality later. Here's an example, as I mentioned, the AirCheck 52. It's not really to scale. We want to make sure and keep the view of the AirCheck Essential clear. So the AirCheck 52 is a little smaller in this diagram. So here is, I hope you can see that clearly. Here's the little screw that you would turn to adjust the flow rate up or down. And in our case, the kind of virtual screwdriver would be the up and down arrows. And then with the AirCheck 52, this is the button you would press to turn it on and start the motor. And in our case now, you're going to use the pump button. All right, powering the pump up. I have, just to make it a little bit simpler to see, instead of turning it sideways and having 2 views, you will see anytime I use the on and off button, I kind of give a little square to the left, and that's the indicator that you would push the button on the side, the on-off button. So press and release the on-off button on the left side immediately, and just for a couple of seconds, you will see all the characters activated on the screen, kind of like in your car when you start up your car and everything comes on just to verify that it's working. I do want to take a minute to point some of these out because you may not see all of them during the operation calibration exercise. Starting in the top left of the display, first you will see the word locked displayed with a little icon of a padlock right next to it. This word locked will appear when you have pressed the on-off button while the pump is running. This is an indication that you have locked out the screen for kind of that second level of protection. Next to that, you will see fault, and that will appear next to a small hazard triangle anytime the pump has gone into flow fault during a run. This will remain in the display even if the pump was able to auto restart and reestablish the flow rate. This is so that you will know that the pump has faulted at some point, and you may need to evaluate whether you have a valid sample. It is important to note that the elapsed time clock will freeze when the pump goes into full fault, and then it will resume once that has been reestablished. So the flow time that is on the display will be the amount of time that the pump ran properly. Next is just a battery indicator for your quick reference. It has 4 bars that will give you a remaining battery capacity in 25% increments. The max or min is something you probably won't see very often. It's accompanied by an up or down arrow. This will be displayed if you have adjusted the pump to the highest or down to the lowest level possible. It's just letting you know you have turned it up as high as it will go. And if it's not at the flow rate you needed, there may be an issue. Last is the elapsed time clock. It's pretty self-explanatory, but as you can see, it is a nice large screen for viewing. The part of the clock that displays seconds, which is the 2 smallest characters of the clock, are also used in a certain screen to display what we call relative flow. This is a number between 1 and 99 that changes as you adjust the flow. It will be a little different for each pump as far as that number and as it relates to the flow rate, but this is intended just to give you a rough indication of the flow rate. In some ways similar to the old ball float that we used to use on some of the older pumps. The firmware version of the pump will be displayed for about 3 seconds. So if you're ever in doubt or ever need to know if your pump is up to date, that's where you would go to find out your firmware version. At this point, you have pressed the on-off button and approximately 4 or 5 seconds has passed. This will be the screen that you come to for starting the pump if its flow adjustment and calibration has already been done. So if you've already adjusted the flow and you've already calibrated, at this point you would be ready to go. Or if you are ready to perform calibration, we're going to proceed in that case because we know we have not yet performed a calibration on the pump. Before proceeding, you would want to set up your sampling train or actually your calibration train, but your sampling train as you would use it out in the field. Then connect your calibrator before proceeding. We will be using the SKC Checkmate for this presentation. For this demonstration, I have the pump connected to tubing, which is then connected to a PPI. And then using an adapter, I have connected to the inlet side of the sampling media to the outlet of the Checkmate calibrator. If you are not familiar with the Checkmate, it is our NIST traceable plus or minus 1% accurate calibrator that allows hands-free operation after powering up. I'll discuss it a little bit more at the end of the presentation if we have time. Now that you've got your calibration train set up and ready to go, at this point you would use the up or down arrows to adjust the flow to the flow rate. Now remember, this is a basic pump and so it does not display flow rate. That's why we've given you the flow indicator just to give you an idea. So at this point you're making this adjustment. You are looking for your desired flow rate to be displayed on your calibration device. For this presentation purposes, we're going to press the up arrow to increase the flow rate. So just pressing the flow rate here would activate the up arrow on the left, and tapping the up arrow would cause the up arrow to appear at the left of the screen that you see, and the pump would increase in small increments. You would be able to hear the pump increasing slowly, and you would also see the relative flow indicator value in the lower right-hand corner increasing. Pressing and holding the up arrow down would cause the up arrow to appear at the left the same way, but this series of characters that you see on the screen would all continue upward until they go off the screen above, and then they would reappear in the bottom and continue cycling upwards over and over until you release the button. The pump would increase speed quickly in this case, and the relative flow value would increase rapidly as well. Once your calibrator has reached the target flow rate, press the pump button to continue. We are now back at the flow adjustment screen. If necessary at this point, we could do a calibration again. If something happened and it changed and you needed to calibrate at a different flow rate, we could start that process again. We have just come back to the flow screen. But since we know that we just calibrated to our desired flow rate, we're ready to start collecting the sample. Note that the relative flow indicator is now reading 50 instead of the 30 that it read before we started pressing the up arrow. This is, again, just a quick check that the pump was adjusted and that it stayed where you set it. The battery indicator still shows full, so we're in good shape in that regard. At this point, you want to disconnect any calibration supplies, extra tubing, adapters, etc. Once you have placed the pump and the sampling train on the subject to be sampled, you simply touch the pump button again to start the pump running. At this point, you would want to close the screen cover, and I apologize that the slide shows it open. It should be closed at this point. The pump is now collecting a sample. The flashing LEDs will continuously indicate whether the flow rate is being maintained. Flashing green is obviously good. Touching the up or down arrows at this time, as long as the screen is not locked, will display the relative flow indicator value. So if just for some reason you wanted to make sure that it was still running and that you were at still approximately the same flow, you could press the up or down arrows and you would see that 56 in the flow indication value that we saw a moment ago. Now, if you want to lock the screen, you simply press and release the on-off button. The backlight is now off, so the screen will appear dark, but you can still view the elapsed clock, the battery indicator, and whether or not there has been a fault during the run. Locked will appear and stay in the display in the screen, and the flashing LEDs will continue to give you the flow rate status. The three buttons, and this is key, the three buttons on the keypad are now inactive. So even if someone raised the protective cover and tried to press the buttons, nothing would happen because they are inactive. In the case of a fault, as we discussed earlier, the LEDs will change from green to red. The elapsed time will freeze and fault is now displayed in the screen. The pump will continue trying to restart every 15 seconds up to 5 times before shutting down permanently. To stop the pump, you will need to unlock the screen by pressing the on-off button again. The backlight will come on and the buttons on the keypad are now active again. Open the protective cover and touch the pump button. The elapsed time will now freeze. The LEDs will stop flashing, but the fault indicator will remain with the elapsed time until cleared. If you have documented your flow time and documented that you had a fault indication in this case, you can clear the elapsed time and or fault indicator by touching and holding the pump button for 3 seconds. It's important to note this will delete the elapsed time permanently. To turn off the pump, press the on-off button. And that's pretty much as simple as it is to operate and calibrate this pump. Just using the up and down arrows for your flow adjustment and using the pump button to get to the next cycle in the process, whether it be to start the pump, whether it be to erase existing data, or whether it be to move to the next section after calibration. So now I want to jump in real quick to just some quick kits that we offer, just so that you'll know how it's offered. and this is very similar to the way we've offered our pumps in the past. There is one little unique part in some of the new family of pumps. We're offering them in 3 packs. If you're familiar with SKC, you know that we sell it by pump only. In case you have a pump that went bad and you already have your charging accessories, you can buy the pump by itself. We have a starter kit that gives you the basic accessories that you need to get going. We have a single high flow pump kit that gives you all the accessories to do low flow and high flow sampling. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we have a 3-pack kit that gives you all the accessories for high and low. We actually have 2 5-packs. One of them was not on this screen, but we have the 5-pack high flow kit that you see there at the bottom. And then we also have a 5-pack high low flow kit that offers all low flow and high flow accessories as well. I said I was going to circle back around real quick and talk about the Checkmate. I'm a big fan of the Checkmate, and if you were on our previous webinar, I talked about it some there. I'll tone it down a little bit, but the Checkmate is an amazing instrument and tool for making air sampling easier and more efficient. It truly is unmatched in regards to value and performance. We have a standard flow version, which ranges from 500 cc's to 5,000 per minute, or 5 liters per minute, and a low flow version, which ranges from 20 to 500 milliliters per minute. With a 1% accuracy and a NIST and a UCAS certification, the Checkmate is ready to use whenever because it auto corrects for changes in the environment. It has a true 1-button operation and a nice large display for continuously updating running average. It's extremely lightweight at 8.3 ounces, and it can operate in any orientation. It does not have to be on level ground. It can be laying down, it can be standing up, it can be upside down. It can operate from any orientation, and it can do so for 30 hours of runtime on a 9-volt battery. And all of this, and it's still roughly half the price of the competition. I want to show real quick, and I've run out of time. The SKC Checkmate has a averaging feature now. For some people, using the 10 cycles or multiple cycles of something is important. And I just want to point out that the Checkmate now does have an averaging feature where you can press and hold the button, and it will indicate that it's going into the average mode. It'll tell you that it's on, and it'll then exhibit the regular flow rate as it is, and after it takes 10 flow rates of approximately 3.5 seconds, it will then exhibit average again and display the average flow rate. And then it will continue doing that until you either turn it off or restart it. All right, Chuck, I think I am out of time. I think I went over a few minutes, but are you available to answer some questions?
I'm available to answer some questions. Andy, thank you very much. That was a great presentation on our new pump. We do have a few questions, so let's go over the questions right now. First question from James: what is the back pressure at 4 liters per minute? That pump, the Essential pump, can handle about 30 inches of water at 4 liters a minute. That's a spec that we put in there, but so if you read our spec material, it would say 30 inches, but I'm told, and we've tested, that it'll actually withstand much more pressure than that. The reason why we put 30 is we're always very conservative in terms of our specs. That pump, the pump that you saw, the Essential pump, is the pump that we have that'll handle the most back pressure for a 5 liter a minute pump, and it'll run the longest also. And we've done that by a unique pneumatic system that allows us to do that. So that was question number 1. Question number 2: can you replace the protective battery screen only? Yes, you can replace the protective screen only. That was something that when we did field testing and when we took it out to the end users, that was something that they desperately wanted, to not have to replace the whole case. to replace either the belt clip or the connect or the screen on the top, and that's something that you can replace individually. Third question from Cynthia: Can these pumps be kept on the charger for long periods of time? Yes, they can be kept on the charger for long periods of time. We tried to make this pump be able to be used in the best of all scenarios. The best of all scenarios, the best practice would be if you know you're not going to use the pump, to take it off the charger, fully charge it, set it on the shelf, and then the night before charge it again. However, if you're in a situation where you don't know when you're going to be able or have to use the pumps in the future, you may get someone that comes into your office and says, hey, can you go out and get a sample today? You can use these pumps and put them, leave them on the charger. All of our chargers have a trickle charge capability, and these are powered by lithium-ion batteries, which offset some of that. So yes, you can leave them on the charger if you need be. Best practice would be to charge it, put it on the shelf, and only charge it before you need it. Ultra low, question from James: ultra low flow mode needed for sampling low flow rates? Yes. Anything below 500 mils a minute, you need what we consider to be a all-in-one or a CPC and an adjustable low flow holder. And that basically puts the pump in constant pressure mode and allows you to run more than one sorbent tube at a time. You're delivering a constant pressure to an orifice, and then there's a needle valve in the all-in-one and the adjustable low flow holders that you change to make flow adjustments. Another question from James: is the Checkmate a primary standard? We have recently gotten away from the terminology primary, and we refer to it as a NIST, calibrated to a NIST standard. The Checkmate is a 1% instrument, so over the full range, it's at 1%. We've been very successful in selling these to the compliance bodies that are out there. So I guess if you look at it in the way we used to the terminology for old calibrators, this would be considered a primary, but we are now referring to it as a 1% instrument calibrated to a NIST standard. Are the pumps waterproof or intrinsically safe? That question came in from Ed, and waterproof, I don't know if it's waterproof. I would say it's water resistant. We put these in stationary tubs and squirted them off with water, and even with the cover up, and not had any issues with that. It will not withstand being in water though, because the board will eventually see that water and start rusting. Intrinsic safety, yes, this has intrinsic safety, and it's the new intrinsic safety standard that's out. So it will have intrinsic safety standards. Does it have a data logger? From Dan. No, it does not have a data logger. So this pump will not data log. If you want to go to data logging, I would suggest you look at the AirCheck Touch. Another question from Cynthia: how do you set the number of hours the pump is to run, stay, to turn off after 4 hours of operation? Andy, do you want to handle this one?
Sure. Yeah, this is, if I understood correctly, you're wanting to know how you set it to automatically turn off after 4 hours. Is that correct, Chuck?
That is correct.
Yeah, and this is meant to be a basic pump, and I know it's very interesting because it has all the digital displays and everything, and a lot of times that automatically to us means it has data logging and programmability. But this was intended to be a very basic pump that you can turn on, adjust the flow with the calibrator, and start it running. There's no programmability with the pump. And kind of like what Chuck was saying with regards to the data logging, if you are looking for that, we certainly have that capability with the AirCheck Touch.
Thanks, Andy. Next question. We're getting questions in as I'm speaking. So the next question from Morris: how well do these pumps do in extremes of temperatures? We do have a spec on the temperature that's optimal for the pump. I believe it's somewhere in the neighborhood of -5 degrees F to about 110 degrees F. The pump will operate beyond those points. It will not compensate for flow beyond those points. The pump will operate, but I would suggest you take a look at having some type of correction value once you're outside those points. The other thing I would try to do is get the heat off the pump at that point. Next question from Ted. What's your best pump for low flow sampling, 50 to 250 mils a minute? That I would suggest that you take a look at our Pocket Pump Touch. That's a smaller pump. That pump is designed from 5 mils to 500 mils a minute, and it is designated what we consider to be a low flow pump. So if you're only operating between 50 and 250, I think that would be the best option in terms of pumps for you. And last a question I had is cost of the pump. Andy, do you want to take that one?
Certainly, maybe.
Yeah, I got to look it up.
Yes, and I can kind of go along with the kits that I had on the display, and we can kind of go that route and show them. I did want to say something real quick, if I could, to Ted, I think, who asked about the low flow. We did do a webinar on that, so if Ted could contact us, we could certainly get him a link, and he could actually watch the recorded version of that webinar on the Pocket Pump Touch as well. So going back to this, as far as the pump only, you're looking at a price of $749 on the AirCheck Essential. Where to go? The pump, the starter kit, you're looking at $955. And then we had the single high-low flow pump kit, I believe, on there. And that, with all the accessories for low flow sampling and high flow sampling, including the tube holder and cover, is $1,135. And then the 3-pack kit that was in the presentation is $3,549. And then the 5-pack kit that was in the presentation is $5,099. And that those kits include not only the accessories, but a Pelican water resistant airtight case as well.
Thanks, Andy.
All right.
I'm seeing if we have any other questions. So that's it for the questions. I'd like to thank everybody for being a part of this group, but thank Andy again for an excellent presentation. If you have any questions, I would say contact your sales representative. Give us a call, 800-752-8472, or send us a question to skctech@skcinc.com. And we would be happy to help and answer all those questions. And then last, I would want to echo Andy's comments about staying safe. We wish you the best of health, and we wish you and your family to stay safe as we progress through this virus thing and get to the other end. So with that, I'd like to say thanks again, and take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you on the next webinar that we do. Thank you.
Have a great week.
Bye-bye.